Okay, so what you need for halos, in addition to doing them by hand, is obviously a compass with one of these draftsman nibs, I think they're called. Lining nibs, yeah. You can get cheap ones, but they're just not worth it. Generally, these are made for really sharp points, so often I found you've got to get 1200 paper and just smooth it a bit, because it'll cut into the gesso and it'll clog up your tip very quickly. So
where can you buy them?
it's more difficult, really. You can buy them, but eBay. There's a German make, but you get, if it's cheap, don't buy it.
Sorry, what are they called?
Well, compasses, but you get one with an, I think, well, they're called various things, but a draftsman's nib. They should have a photograph. One of the trouble is that the few who do use these for drafting tend to use rotring attachments rather than these. This is rather old-fashioned. So go to second-hand places, and sometimes you can get a beautiful box with ivory handles made in the 19th century, and they're really cheap. I bought an amazing set for £10.
What sort of second-hand place?
eBay.
They're called.
Well, yeah, just going online. I mean, you've probably got to pay quite a
Pre-loved.
lot.
Is this a technique here?
Pre-loved, that website called Pre-loved.
Pre-loved.
Yeah, it's a website for second-hand
No, the
things.
one iconographer I studied with.
Yeah.
P-R-E-L-O-V-E-D, Pre-loved. And you could Google architectural compass or something like
I
that.
bought a set.
Technical
I
drawings,
bought a set
yeah.
recently, but it was a German make.
Yeah, I think the only make I know, I don't know its name, but it's a German one. Yeah. So I mean, if you do have a choice, the easiest ones to use are ones with these here you can quickly move, and then you fine tune. The other is where it's set, so if you've got to go a long way, this gets a bit monotonous. And then if you can, I get one with an extension. So you've got a really big halo. What you do is take that out. That's right. Yeah. You put this in, tighten it up. I've had these about 30 years, and the threads are beginning to go. So they don't always tighten as much as they do. But I think you can buy replacements. So you can do really big halos. The posher ones like this, if you do that, it's at quite an angle, so you can just bend that and make it more vertical. Yeah. And that's a nice luxury, but if you've got a choice, it's very useful actually. So, the first thing is pass it around now. That's the average width I found good. Just whatever that is a minute. Have a look at that at the light to get a mental image of how open it is.
I'm passing it to you, yeah.
So if you wanted to do a thicker line, would you just do it one on one?
Yeah, if you haven't too much, they'll take this blob out. So I'll demonstrate here, but you do one line, another one next to it, or if you like, two lines with a gap and then fill in between. So you need your compass. You need something to put it into, and I found it a hardwood like this, and see it's tapered. The reason being that if you're doing a small icon with a little neck like that, if you had a really wide bit of wood, let's just say it's really thick there, when you come to finishing off, it'll hit that. So you want a small, you want to tape if it's a really tiny hit,
I can't even see it actually, don't
like that.
Really
You put
nice
it like that.
little tools.
And you won't bump into the wood. This is an old wooden
This is
rule.
really good. Actually. We used to use a rubber, but it's this one is good.
Yes.
Could you show
The trouble with the rubber, it'll be quite thick, and then the halo, then the thing's going at a wrong angle. So the first thing to do once you're all set up is what I do is I mix up the paint first. If you get everything ready in the middle, then you're mixing your paint, you can knock it off. So get your paint all ready. So if you're going on gold, then of course it's this mix we just discussed. It's a bit of a knack to getting the right thickness of paint. If it's too watery, it'll all splurge out. If it's too thick, it won't come out at all. So I have a bit of scrap paper on hand as well. Taking a mental note of the gap.
It's very,
It's
very
very
close,
round.
isn't it? It's
Yeah.
practically touching.
As you'll see, we'll do a bit of an experiment and always do a trial on scrap paper before we put it on, but that's roughly where you'll start.
Could you tell us about that ruler piece?
Yeah, you don't want to put your sharp point on the gesso. Some people do, and they just paint it over, but it's not a good idea. So you want something to stick it into. So a hard wood, not a soft wood, and fairly thin. And you taper it down, so if you're doing a small head like that, when you're doing the halo, it doesn't hit the wood. If it was a thick bit of wood like that, it would hit the wood before it got to the shoulder. Right, so the first thing to do is to find the centre of the head. So a simple way of doing that is to just keep moving the compass around until it's... So most of the thread has gone a bit on this. If I over tighten it, I'll do thread. And risk it. So keep moving around like that, bring it in a bit until it's touching there. So it's in the middle left and right, and I'll move it till it's touching the end there. Okay, so that's the centre of the head. Generally, from the eyes up, that should follow, your icon should follow a circle. I'm not saying it's going to be a perfect circle, you might have bits of hair coming out that will return to a circle. So
Even with the side-facing icons?
yeah. It's a bit more complicated with the side-facing one, I'll discuss that in a minute. So then, you open it up to the width you want. And you really, you need to do this when you do your drawing. The reason is that you don't want a big gap up here, empty, but you don't want the halo to be shooting off the edge. So part of your drawing, as I said, the first thing you design is to decide if the halo is going to go over the border or not. If it goes over the border, you can put your head further up. If it's going to go within the border, your head's got to be further down. So you've got to know right from the beginning where your head is going to be. So that drawing will tell you how wide your halo is. There are no hard and fast rules, but the halo is just a bit under, I think. Roughly twice the radius of the icon, of the icon head. Right. So take that off there. Now when you
Twice. Something about this is equal to this distance again, or something like that.
not always,
No.
but Egon Sendler's book, which I hope gets reprinted, it's brilliant, called Icon Image of the Invisible, did a lot of research on different halo radii compared to the head, and gives a whole typically thorough, dramatic fashion. He gives lots of different proportions, like 80% of this proportion, 20%. But it's not a hard and fast rule. That's
He doesn't like you to use a compass.
Leonard Ouspensky didn't.
No, he doesn't either.
Oh, really? Okay. Now, it's very important when you lift off that this doesn't move. Okay? When you lift off, that shouldn't move. So it's a bit of a knack to doing it. So now you put your paint in. Don't overfill, otherwise it'd be more inclined to sort of flop out. But you don't want to run out halfway. Now the end dries very quickly, so you've got to test and do the halo very quickly. Oops, sorry, I forgot to, I lost the centre, so that this should be, okay. So I'll do it and then I'll tell you the trick after it's done. Okay. Now the trick is to lean it forward a bit. The reason being, if you go vertical like that, it will tend to scrape up the gesso. So you lean it forward a bit, and don't push hard, it's just hardly any pressure. You're just leading it round like that. Right. And that's it. And slightly overlap, I'll leave it there, just slightly overlap the outline of the shoulder. So I've gone slightly over. Let's pretend that's the shoulder. If you try to stop at the shoulder, you'll have a blob. Whenever you stop, you'll get a blob. So don't try to stop it precisely at the thing. Go over it, but then you can take it off later. So now if you want to make a wider one, don't be tempted to open this up really wide because you'll blob all over the place. So just open it up a bit more and repeat. Let's turn just a bit. So I was just saying, Martin, tilt it forward a bit and see that slightly, I've seen it moved when I lifted it off. So just 0.5 millimetre makes all the difference. So,
Would you stick the ruler down with glue tack or something?
you can if you want to. I think it's just because it's paper, see paper's bent a bit.
Not with glue tack, though. You might lift up some of the...
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
You might lift up some of the paint, I guess.
Now sometimes you'll have like this,
You can repair the
a
paint
white and
easier
off-white
than
line on
fix
the
it over.
outside.
True.
So if you're going to do that, just wait till your red is dried, otherwise it'll bleed in.
Can we do it?
If you want to, yeah.
Do you mind if we do it?
Sometimes things go a bit wrong and you end up with a red line thicker than you want. So one way to get around that is to put an off-white line on the outside so it visually makes it small and you overlap the red line. And now, the one or two things you can do, you can, if it's burnished gold, you can just, you can paint in or you can just scratch in with no paint. So if you're going to scratch, you just bring it up tight. So you'd scratch in 2 lines. It's just, I've done this in an icon once or twice. And then you get a punch and you just punch little holes in between like that. So your punch, I have to make my own, but the cross section of the punch was like that, like a cone. Right. It's important if you do that it's not a sharp point. So that's wrong and that's right. So you punch in like that. Some people will put another really light one down the middle so they know where to put the point. That can be quite like jewel-like. That.
Could you draw it from head on? As in, what would the end look like?
Well, if you're looking down at it,
Yeah.
it would be like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's just a
Right.
cone.
Right.
But the important thing is that it's a really flat cone. If it's pointed,
Oh,
you
yeah.
just get a hole, but what you want is a sort of shallow
Yeah.
cone. And it's got to be really polished well. You can get a nail punch, but most nail punches are a bit too pointy, so you can be rind or whatever.
Did you have to hit hard with a hammer?
No, just that.
Push. And how did you get to know the width between the... You have to just do it per arm?
Depends on,
Yeah, it's easy.
I mean, you can, just by eye or whatever.
Supposing you make a complete hash of it on the water.
The placa dries almost waterproof after, I don't know, a day or two, but for the next hour or two you can take it off with a damp but not wet brush because water can stain water gilding.
Also,
And
you
it's
have
still
glaca in this.
If it's on gold, not on paint, you don't need it, but if it's on gold you must have your placa, egg and strong pigment mix. Yeah.
But it's going to stain anyway, isn't it? If you have
Well,
to take it off?
no, yeah, I mean if you have a dry
With the
enough brush.
canvas, you have the plaque and that mix.
Yeah. If it's on burnished gold or even oil gilding, you've got to tell us it'll bead.
What about... I have a brush that I put on mine, on the compass. Should I go?
Yeah, best of luck if you can do it. Yeah,
I do.
that's good. Yeah. I mean, some people do it by hand, or some people, I think, etch out the outline. They might etch out 2 lines, and they'll just paint it by hand in between, all sorts of variations. If you're doing really big fresco, I just get a string.
What
I
do
like
you do if it's going on to the kibitos and things? Is that supposed
Yeah,
to
well,
be
that's-
technique?
That's a bit of an act. This is the importance of leaning forward, so that the kibito. If you lean forward, it's really light touch. So a really light touch, then it'll be all right. Let's see what else there is. Oh yes, from the side. Let's see if I can example here from the side. You've just got to use a bit of aesthetic judgment when it's to the side, because it's circular there, but then it cuts away quickly there. So if you're not careful, you can have a big space here. In that case, it is the same distance all the way around, so it's not an issue. But sometimes with daisies, you've got to shift the halo a little bit away from the face, otherwise there's a big gap. Example. I think he's actually shifted it there.
Yeah.
He has shifted a bit this way, he's more distance here, but the general area is about the same. This has got this concavity here, so sometimes you've got to be a bit creative. There, this more is the same other side, so it's just simply in the centre, but you want visually it to be a radiance of the head.
And what about when halos intersect, you know, the mother and the child?
Well, the most important, well, the mother and the most important goes over the top, but as in here, but sometimes it's in the city underneath, but I would say the most important goes over the top.
Is that he takes precedence?
Yeah,
over
yeah. So he would go over the top, yeah. So in that case, you've got to put the Saviour's one on first, and then do the Virgin's, of course.
Okay.
I'd rather usually put the white on the inside there, normally the white's on the outside of the red.
Maybe it's this way the way than the staples.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Any other questions?
Pigment. Same
Or-
as for lettering?
Yeah,
Right?
exactly the same, yeah.
And if you've got like our flat boards without the kivitos, do we draw a red border 17 millimetres in?
Oh,
No,
yes.
no.
We don't do that?
You can, but no, I think it looks artificial. If you've got an icon that is like that,
Yeah.
visually you will carry a border around there. So as long as you have a lettering within the border, as though there's a raised border, you can have the header go over if you like. If it's gold, so who's got one here that's just scratched on, a flat one? Someone, yeah. So can you show us that?
But what about this little red line? Does that go on?
Yeah, it's an act to drawing a red line around the outside. So Janina is just very gently etched a line in there. So when she does the lettering, she's got to keep within that there. Even if you didn't have the line etched in, visually you would create one because of that. If you put a red line there, to me, it just wouldn't do anything really.
And painting the sides then?
Yeah, again, if it's, well, actually no, I was going to say use the same mix for the edges, but the edges are going to be handled a lot, aren't they? When you pick up an icon, your hands are on the edge. So I find something more robust than egg and placa. So for that, I make mine out of shellac, French polish, and pigment. So that sets quickly and it's really robust. And the same is used around the edge. This is for the, has someone got an icon here? I could just, yeah, the edge. Oh, use mine behind here, yeah. So generally, you've got a red border. So here I'll put a border about 2 millimetres, 3 millimetres wide all around, using
3,
shellac.
5 millimeters, did you say?
Yeah, 3 to 5 millimetres. With an A4, 3 millimetres, that's fine. And the same mix I'll put around the edge. So there's red ochre in shellac. You know what shellac is?
Yeah.
Yeah, French polish. And when you mix it up, and it lasts a long time, I got about that much, a bottle. Mix it up and you probably find it's a bit lumpy. So just strain it through some muslin and that'll last a long time. Now to do those lines requires a bit of practice, but you'd use your sign writer's liner for that. That's by far the best thing to make these lines. Any time you want to make a line that doesn't vary in thickness, the artist's, the sign writer's liner is the thing you want for. And they're very cheap to buy from Pro Art. So this is one here. So this is the one I use most, I think. I've had this about 30 years and it's still in good condition. Maybe number 1 or something, I don't know. I haven't got it with me. I don't suppose anyone's got a bit of wood here, have they?
Yes, Martin, in
Flip
that
forward.
box, if you flip that box up. What we use for the cutting the paper. That one?
Yeah, that should be right, yeah. Okay.
You said shellac.
Yeah, but with pigment, not
Yeah.
lacquer.
Yeah.
Two books to lift it up a bit, just smaller ones. We've got them down, under behind you, I think, down here.
Yeah.
That's right. So, I want to lift this up just a little bit. So get two books the same height. That's about right, I think. I'm a left-hander, so I'll arrange it differently from a right-hander. Because I'm a left-hander, I need plenty of space here to continue. If I went like that, what happened when I got to there, I'd fall off the edge. So it's a good idea to have a longer one, so you've got a long icon. If I'm doing that, I'm getting perilously close to the end there. That's just long enough for this. So you want it about that height, whatever it is. What's the height? Anyone got a ruler? What's the height of that?
3 centimetres.
That height off the board
An
anyway.
inch.
Okay. Always do the standing up. So looking down, make sure this is perfectly parallel with the edge and just about 3 millimetres back from the edge. Of course, this would be the last thing you do, so you paint everything first before you did this. Now, it's quite a knack to do, but once you've got the knack, it's quite easy. So you want to stop this moving up and down, and you want to stop it moving, well, left and right, and you want to stop it moving up and down. So if you lean this, the metal part against this, it can't go left or right. And you see I'm holding up that like that, and that finger there is touching the corner there. So it can't go down because this is resting on that, like that. The only reason it could go off is if my elbow lifts like that, or if this moves. See, that's why you must stand, and you're not moving from the elbow, you're moving the whole body like that. Because if I just go like that, you're going to increase pressure. This is running out very quickly because this is gesso without paint on it, so it's very absorbent. Normally, of course, you would have painted, so you do this in one run.
Just hold the breath.
Okay. Shellac is dissolvable in methyl spirits, so you just get the mix right for running like that. Okay, so you do that all around. It would go on a lot more easier than that if it were painted first.
And if that was gold, you'd still do it just with the shellac and pigment?
I would do that with shellac. I mean, you could
The
give
shellac
it
will stick on it.
if it's on a painted background. I mean, you could paint the edge if you like. It's going to be more robust on a painted background than on a gold background. So you could just use egg template if you wanted. Up to you really. But still, the edges you wouldn't do with egg template. They would be done with shellac. Shall I tell you about painting the background in case someone wants to do that at home? Okay. If you're doing vermilion, basically just slap it on. You don't have to sort of bother about translucency. You just want it evenly and reasonably thick. Same with probably blue. You just want a good coverage. You don't want it translucent. But if you're going to have an ivory, what you don't want, I think, is a feeling of a coat of paint on top. So you want that more of a stain. So you're thinking of a stain, really. So the difficulty with getting a translucent stain is that you can get brush strokes, and then you've got to put more layers on to cover up the brush strokes, and before you know it, you've got a thick layer of paint. So the trick there is get your mix all ready, and then wet the area, and then put it on. So the wetness reduces the absorbency of the gesso, so you've got more time to spread it.
So just
Because
water.
fresh gesso, I'll actually do it, I'll demonstrate. You just water. Because if you put it on virgin gesso, I'll just do it with a bit of yellow. If you put this layer on virgin gesso, it would soak in so quickly you would get brush strokes. It's not particularly nice. So if you wet it first, you're reducing the absorbency, and you'll be able to spread it and have probably about 30 seconds to spread it. Get the biggest brush you can and the softest, so i.e. the largest squirrel you can get. Squirrel brushes absorb a lot of moisture, so you'll need to mix a lot, otherwise you'll just find that you put your brush in, it all sucks up, and you know, you've got to make another mix, and it'll never be the same. Just a mixing brush. There are all sorts of colours you can use. You could use a straight yellow ochre, or yellow ochre with a touch of white, all sorts of things. But basically, I think you're after an ivory. If you want a white, you want an ivory off-white. Or some people do have a more sort of goldy effect. You can puddle, of course. But puddling can be very difficult to do well without it becoming too, pretty.
I heard that.
Okay, so we don't. Can someone give me clean water? Thank you. Bless you. Just a bit of perfection now. I tend to do this at the very end of the painting, because you can get it all nice, and with your painting you can make it dirty and your hands rubbing against it. Thank you very much indeed. So you've got your pigment all there ready, and plenty of it.
You do the whole background and then just do a halo
Um,
of the same color. Well, and just leave it and basically do the line. Is that?
in this case, probably I haven't really thought that far here. I mean, you should normally, but sort of sacrificing this icon so it can teach you the background. But probably in this case, I'll just put a red line. And I think I'll put a blue cross in with the I am on, but with the O on.
So will it be an icon?
Yeah, I want to finish it.
Because it will have a halo.
Oh yeah, no, it'll all be finished and sellable.
But a partial halo doesn't count, does it? Or
No, you should never do an icon with a partial halo.
What's a partial halo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you explain that?
The one that's been chopped off or something.
yeah, where
Oh, I see.
No,
the circumference extends beyond the board,
no,
and that doesn't count.
Like your Gregory Krug.
you can do anything.
He's Swedish, half Swedish.
See?
Yeah.
He's Lithuanian, wasn't he?
Yeah. His father was Swedish. His mother was.
This first layer, I wouldn't do it so soon with that red on, because the red will bleed a little bit. But you get the idea. So you've got a lot of time to spread, haven't you? It's all translucent, and it will be slightly uneven, which is what you want, but not distractingly uneven. Have a either clean bit of paper or clean rag on hand, just in case you need to take excess off. Okay. If you let that dry, then you can decide if you want to put something else on top. It creates quite a nice ivory colour. It will become less yellowy as it dries. I normally, of course, I'd title this up before I did it, but I wanted to demonstrate this. You can ruin a good item.
What about with cloth, like because I've got creases in mine and...
Well, if you've got a cloth, you've got to paint the cloth as a cloth. I mean, you can do these Mandelian cloths quite abstractly. Just it's got to correspond to the abstraction of your icon. Father's on here, for example, Father Gregory Krug. He specialises in these darts of white, and that's a very abstract one. One quite clever way of making an abstract cloth look a bit more 3D is to have some stripes going along it, and they bend round with the folds of the cloth. There's got more than one here. Cool. And there's that one in the cupboard.
Up to how many layers would you put on the background?
So that's got a quite abstract bit. You want some system of hanging. Some actually have it like hang on a curtain rod. Some just hang like that and go behind the halo. That's quite an abstracted way of doing it. Just to resolve a bit, I think rather than have it like a curtain like that, it's nicer, and most icons have a fold there and more general like that, and then another fold there. To me that looks better than just a sort of a simple hanging cloth. Some of Father's in Arms are very abstracted, they're just really quite stretched out, which is another way to do it. Like that one there. That's just sort of stretched out and you've got tassels at the bottom.
Next page.
So completely flattened. So that's a more abstracted. So there are all sorts of different ways of doing it. Or, as in here, the icon board itself becomes the Mandelian. You don't paint the cloth in it, the board is the cloth.
Aidan, how many layers would you put on?
Might be one.
And would they not start kind of rubbing off
No.
with the subsequent layer?
Do you mean if you put more layers on? So if you use a really soft brush and don't overwork it. As I've often said, when you're glazing, you immediately put the glaze on, it softens what's underneath. If you go over it soon after, it'll lift. So twice is about the most you can do one area.
And the subsequent you don't do with the water,
No,
you just do
no,
with
it's
the
been
chemical.
sort of semi-sealed enough with that.
So there is no agate, it's just water.
Oh no, that's a tempered on top.
Would you do that the same with other colours?
Yeah, but if you're doing blue or vermilion, I wouldn't bother, just put on the vermilion just fairly thickly, and the blue the same. But with blue, sometimes what I've done is put the azurite on and then put a wash of pure black over, so that gives it variety, it's not a flat dead surface. So then you can give it a play.
How do you put vermilion or blue thickly and evenly?
Well, say thickly, I'd still need about 3 layers. You just don't put much water in your mix, and use your largest brush.
You don't put much water in the mix.
No, you don't. You just be endlessly putting lots of layers unnecessarily. Sometimes to get effect, you need lots of translucent layers. But for vermilion, if you look at any vermilion ones, they're quite a strong vermilion. You don't see any translucency.
But you still put the water.
You wouldn't
No,
need to, no.
Because this would be the opposite.
That would be counterproductive, really, because if you wet it, you need more layers. So.
Can I just ask, so what do you think I should do with that one?
Well, drapery is quite a big field, really. What you do need to do is clean up all this, because you don't want really thick colouring on top, and all this will show through if you use translucent layers, which is what will show. So,
You think I should do it like this then?
well, no, this is not got a drapery, so it's just flat. But here we need to make a drapery. So the most common thing would be to put either a light green and then white highlighting.
Like this one, this sort of...
No, not straight green, but green with a bit of yellow. That's
Right.
Or very thin umber and water or sometimes a yellow oak. In other words, you want a really washed out topaz
That
moss.
bit of the edge
And
of the
being
pale